Let's talk about how to create your own tabletop RPG adventure in 10 easy steps. So I just wrapped up work on an adventure for my Patreon called Astralin Odyssey, and right now I'm compiling a hardcover book of adventures, and I'm working on this month's Patreon adventure. What I'm trying to say is that I am knee-deep in adventure writing. It's taking up all the space in my brain, so I thought it would be fun to break down the process and make a video. World building is a super fun way to spend time being creative, and I hope that breaking down this process into 10 easy steps will give you the confidence to create your own tabletop role-playing game adventure. Now, it doesn't matter what game you're playing, these steps should help you go from a blank page to, at very least, an outline for your own campaign. Just follow along with this list, take a few notes as we go, and you can fill in the rest of the details later. Okay, let's get started. Step 1 is determining the scale of your adventure. Are you trying to write a one-shot dungeon or a campaign that's going to take you a year to complete? This step should be pretty easy to figure out, but make a note so you can keep it front of mind. I find it's really easy to get carried away with planning and create lots of fun stuff to fill up an adventure, so having your scale figured out will keep you reined in and on track. Okay, step 2 is deciding on a theme. So will your adventure be a heroic fantasy where the players save the world from some great evil? Or maybe it's a low magic, grimdark dungeon crawl, or a swashbuckling space heist? Or maybe it's even a coming-of-age story about teenagers defending their hometown from vampires. You know, maybe theme isn't quite the right word. I'm sort of lumping setting and characters into these examples, but the important part is to make note of the vibe of your game. You know, how do you want your players to feel, and what sort of experience do you want them to have at the table? Now, sometimes the game you're playing will dictate the theme, but that just makes this step a little bit easier. It's just really important to figure out your scale and your theme first, because you're going to want to keep both of those in mind when tackling the other 8 steps of this list. Especially theme, because everything else from here on out should point back to your theme as much as possible. Okay, step number 3 is the goal. This one is player specific. In fact, this is the only real decision you're going to be making for your players as the game master. You know, it's what's their mission? Why are they gathered together? What's the thing they're all trying to achieve as you're playing through this adventure? It might help to think of some fun verbs. Will your players be defeating an evil wizard, or maybe they're escaping an infested dungeon, or maybe they're trying to steal a powerful magic item from the queen? You can absolutely write down multiple goals, and your players will probably have their own that they bring to the table. And this is really what makes tabletop RPGs fun, is when the goals overlap and diverge. You know, what happens when the players try to escape, but they're also trying to steal and also trying to defeat? This is where the game gets really interesting and fun. And speaking of fun, let's move on to the really fun stuff. Step number 4 is locations. So make a list of places the players can explore. I like to have some safe places for the players to rest and spend their gold and get quests, and then a bunch of dangerous places for them to go and explore, fight, and find treasure. It helps to start simple by writing down the name and just a brief description of the location. Stuff like the Lucky Horse Tavern at the Crossroads or the Ruined Castle on Wolver Hill. Don't worry about who works in the tavern or what's going on at the Ruined Castle yet. You can come back and add more details to each location later. And again, keep the scale and the theme of your adventure in mind when you're making this list. You know, if you're writing a one-shot, you might only need 1 or 2 locations, and those places should feel really thematically appropriate. Okay, step number 5, make some factions. These are the characters that will fill up your adventure, but I think it's helpful to zoom out a little at first. You don't have to start with individual characters. Instead, think about groups of people or monsters or creatures that will fill up the locations from the last step. So let's make an example. Maybe your adventure is set in a small harbor city. It's ruled by an alliance of rich merchants. That would be one faction. You can go back and create some individual NPCs that make up this merchant alliance later. Okay, let's see what else. Maybe there are city guards who are hired by these merchants, and there are ship captains and their crews who transport all the goods around, and maybe there's even like a thieves guild that's causing all kinds of trouble between the guards and the ship captains. Once you have a list of the factions, then you write down what their goals are. What objectives is each faction trying to accomplish? And that leads us into step number 6, conflict. Making a simple list of why the factions are at odds with each other will add so much to your adventure. It can be simple, like the Thieves Guild is stealing from the merchants, and that's making the guards and the ship captains look bad. And this is usually where the players get involved and things get more interesting and complicated. What happens when the players are hired by one of the merchant lords to investigate the stolen goods? They might find out that one of the ship captains is letting the Thieves Guild steal the goods for a cut of the profits. And then it's up to the players. What are they gonna do? We gotta play to find out. And you can make the adventure even cooler by adding some mysteries and secrets. That's step number 7, mysteries and secrets. So the players find out that the Thieves Guild stole a bunch of this stuff from one of the ships, but what they didn't know is that the merchant was actually selling these rare ingredients to an evil alchemist who is using them to cast a spell of undead summoning. And maybe that explains one of the rumors the players heard about skeletons roaming the streets at night. Now, the players having a clear goal is super important, but once you can add in some interesting things for them to discover along the way, it makes their adventure much more engaging and fun. Plus, it adds a level of conflict that gives them tougher decisions to make. But let's not stop there. Step number 8 is throwing in some extra danger. Sometimes the conflict that you wrote up isn't producing enough drama when the players run into it. They've already defeated the skeletons and they're happy to turn in the captain and the Thieves Guild to this merchant lord. And if your players are anything like mine, they will definitely make some sort of rock solid plan to completely avoid danger whenever possible. So that's when it's helpful to throw in some extra danger, an extra level of danger on top. As Matt Colville would put it, orcs attack. So maybe when the players come back to turn the captain into the merchant, the guards attack them on sight. Or maybe they see one of the other ships in the harbor explode off in the distance. Having a few scenarios that will get the players into some action is a great tool to have in your back pocket, especially when the game slows down or the players get stuck on where to go next. Or, let's be honest, when we get stuck as the game master and we don't know what to do in the moment, having a list of some extra danger to throw out there, super helpful. And that kind of leads into step number 9, randomness. One of my favorite things to do while world building and adventure writing is writing up random tables. I find that if an adventure is too planned out, it's just not as fun to run, so throwing in a few random tables of encounters can really spice up a game session and make for a more interesting game experience. So to me, writing random tables feels like preparing the adventure, but adding in the randomness and having the players roll brings some more mystery to the experience on my end, on the game master side of things. I don't necessarily know how the random encounter will shake out and what the effect will have on the rest of the adventure. And the random tables don't always have to be fights. Sure, just like step 8, adding in some extra danger is always fun, but you can add in some interesting environmental hazards or, some things that reveal the history of the world, or my favorite, adding in some weird NPCs for the players to meet. That's always great fun, and it's always the weird random ones that the players latch onto and talk about for the rest of the campaign. And last but not least, step number 10 is rewards. Maybe it's gold or a powerful magic item. You know, sometimes your players need a little extra push to get them headed towards the goal that you wrote down in step number 3. Now, treasure is great, but it doesn't always have to be a physical reward. You can write down stuff like knowledge or a piece of information that might be important to the players. And just like the other steps, remember to keep your theme in mind when creating this list of rewards. Like I said, I'm always working on new adventures. They're my absolute favorite thing to write. I'm in the middle of writing this month's Patreon adventure, and I'm definitely using these 10 steps to figure it all out. Stay tuned, because I'll definitely be talking more about this adventure in upcoming videos. And if you'd like to support the channel and get these cool adventures every month, check out my Patreon. There's a big backlog of digital stuff on there, or if you want the physical versions of a lot of the books, you can check out my online shop. Both are linked down in the description. Really, I just want to say I hope this list helps get you started on writing your own adventure. It's so fun and so rewarding. It doesn't have to be complicated or hard. Just fill out these 10 steps and you're good to go. All right, thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you in the next one. See ya.